So this is being recorded. If you do not want to appear in the recording, feel free to just turn off your video. If you are able to mute yourself also, that would be greatly appreciated. Feel free, if you have questions, to use the raise hand button or put them in the chat, and I will answer them as they appear or at the end. Sorry about the beeps. Okay. Right. And my name is Rebecca Pearl. I'm with AARP ElderWatch. We are a 20-year partnership with the Colorado Attorney General's office, doing education and outreach like this across Colorado and also virtually. We have a volunteer staffed fraud victim support helpline. So if you are a victim of a fraud or scam or have questions about the legitimacy of something, we are happy to help. We also have a peer-to-peer financial counseling program that focuses on end-of-life finances, caregiving finances, and finances after the loss of a loved one. So if you need assistance with any of those things as well, feel free to, again, give us a call. The best way to get in touch with us is by calling us at 800-222-4444, option number 2. And
question, are you only in Colorado?
So yes, our partnership is only in Colorado, but we are able to provide as much information as possible for people outside of Colorado, and we also work closely with the National Fraud Watch Network. So if there are questions that are beyond what we can answer, we can also connect you with them.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And thanks for being here from not Colorado. That's always fun. So today, this is an interactive workshop, so feel free to ask questions throughout and take notes. If it is easiest just to use the chat, that also totally works. If you would like handouts, I do have those. Feel free to put your email in the chat, and I am happy to send those to you. And this is not financial advice, so please be sure to consult with a lawyer or a certified financial planner before making any final decisions. So there are a few financial changes that come when we experience a loss, and they can look very different depending on your situation, but the main ones often are moving or downsizing, a change in income levels, changes in expenses, and then having more people around that usually wouldn't be in your space. And that can lead us to be vulnerable to fraud and scams. And also, it's just a very emotional time. So it can be difficult to deal with a lot of the rapid financial changes that are happening. It is vitally important, though, that before any of that takes place, people have wills in place. And I cannot stress this enough. I have these conversations all the time where people are like, I don't need a will. I have, $1,000 in assets. And I say, yes, you do need a will. You need something written down that says where you want your assets to go once you pass away. Otherwise, they just end up going to the state. And the numbers are kind of staggeringly low. A little over 30% of people have wills. And again, this is going to protect your spouse, your children, and all of the things that belong to you legally. It also gives direction as to how you want property, assets, and any sort of childcare, as well as funeral plans handled after you pass. You can also leave property to people or organizations. Some people donate property to organizations, and that is just how they give that in their will. There is also the process of naming a personal guardian for both minor children and any sort of property that would be left to them. There's a personal representative that's appointed that's different from a guardian to carry out your wishes, and that's going to be the executor of the will. And think very, very, very deeply about who you want in these roles. It does not have to necessarily be your spouse. It doesn't necessarily have to be a sibling. Make sure that the person that is in that role for you is going to be able to carry out your wishes in the way that you want them carried out, and they're not going to do what's in the best interest for them, right? So again, if you don't create a will, your property will automatically go to your closest relatives. If you don't have closest relatives, it goes down the chain. And then eventually, if there's no one, it just ends up going to the state, which is why, again, I say have a will. If you have under $10,000 in assets, you usually do not have to go through, or your loved ones usually don't have to go through the process of probate through the court. So you still do need a will if you have less than $10,000 in assets, but that process wouldn't happen. So there are tons of different ways to actually make a will. There are free templates online. There are so many free templates online. A lot of them look very similar and have just slight changes in either what blanks they have to fill in, or in just like the legal language that is a part of that will. But the state of Colorado has a will template that you can download as well. And I found that to be very useful. There are also websites that you can go on to create an account, and they will create a will for you. And then you are able to print it out, get it notarized, and that is a fairly easy process to go through, and you don't really need any sort of outside assistance. There are also will template books. You can find these at pretty much any office supply store. And again, they just have blanks that you can fill in with the information that you want to include, and really customize it to be what you want it to be. In Colorado, you need 2 witnesses or a notary to make your will a legally binding document. I don't know about other states, but if you have questions about what that looks like in other states, feel free to put it in the chat and I will get back to you. So there are multiple types of powers of attorney, and we are going to discuss 3 of them today. Just very brief overview as to what those look like. And the first one that I want to talk about is durable financial power of attorney. And this allows a person you appoint to manage your financial affairs if you become incapacitated and no longer are able to do so. So this would include paying bills, managing money, dealing with creditors, dealing with any sort of real estate, or other financial matters that you might need handled, and if you're unable to deal with them. So financial power of attorney can also be appointed in special cases temporarily. Let's say, for example, I'm in Nebraska and I am buying a house in California, but I can't make it to the closing of the house in California. I can appoint a temporary financial power of attorney that can sign at the closing of that house for me, and then that is, after they're done with that duty, they're no longer my financial power of attorney. This must be witnessed or notarized to be legal. Then we get to medical power of attorney, and this is probably what you hear about most often, is medical power of attorney. It allows a person you appoint to make medical decisions if you are no longer able to do it for yourself. So this is only health-related decisions that are taken into account with medical power of attorney. This is written according exactly what your wishes are. And it does include care management, deciding medical treatment, hiring personal care assistants, and making overall decisions about overall medical treatments and also potentially end-of-life care. It is outlined separately from financial power of attorney. So again, these are two different documents. They can be appointed to the same person. You can make the same person your medical power of attorney and your financial power of attorney. They can be different people, but it does not need to be witnessed or notarized. Okay, advanced directives, which are also known as living wills, are used when you are no longer able to communicate decisions for yourself. So it's slightly different than medical power of attorney because this does not appoint a person in your place to make decisions for you. This is saying what you want done that you have written prior to being incapacitated that states wishes for end-of-life medical care. If you do not have an advanced directive or a living will, they're the same thing. Do it today or tomorrow. Put it on the top of your to-do list. It's a fairly simple process. You can download the forms. Again, there's tons of different forms. The state of Colorado has a form you can download online, and it takes not that long to fill out. And it's all of the preferences for what you would want or not want to be used to sustain life support. It also includes preferences for pain management and organ donation. And a lot of times, these are things people really, really care about. So make sure that you have this outlined for yourself. And you do need 2 witnesses for this to be legally binding. Okay, so I want to just cover the in case of emergency file, basically. This is a set of information that you should have in a place where someone you trust can get to it, but it's also safe from anyone that would use it inappropriately. So this should include login information for your email, bank accounts, and financial accounts, health history and a robust health history, including current medications, allergies, any sort of medical procedures that have been done in the past, etc. Copy of birth certificate, marriage certificate, and divorce certificate, if applicable, and insurance information for health insurance, life insurance, and home, property, auto insurance. If you have adult children that you trust, think about sharing this information with them, especially if they live close by. They might be your go-to person already. They might not, but in case of an emergency, having someone that knows where to find this information and deal with whatever financial or medical things that come up based on this information, it's important that at least one person can do that for you that's close by. So we will now get into what to do after losing a loved one. And these are the steps to take directly after. And then after this, I'll give a brief overview on some of the scams we see, and then we'll have some time for questions. So the first thing to do is contact Social Security Administration if the funeral home has not done that, to inform them of the passing. So oftentimes the funeral home will do everything for the death certificate, and then with the process of getting the death certificates, they will also notify Social Security. But calling Social Security and either seeing if there's any payments that need to be returned or any benefits that you may get as a survivor would be also an important next step. You can do that later, right? You're contacting Social Security at the beginning to make sure that no one's using your loved one's social security number after they pass. But if you have to make that phone call asking about survivor's benefits, or if there's any payments that might need to be sent back, that would be a good time to do it too. Ask the funeral home for multiple copies of the death certificate. They'll usually ask you how many you would like. People ask like how many I would recommend. I have heard everything between 3 and 15. So within that range, because you do need to send them to various agencies to cancel memberships and stuff like that. Contact the post office to get an email forwarded. Notify the loved one's employer. Locate the will executor, so that's the person who manages the will, and also locate the will. And the last one is contacting all 3 credit bureaus to request the credit report be flagged as deceased, do not issue credit. And all 3 is bolded because you can call one of the credit bureaus and they will say that they will inform the other 2, but the only way that you can make sure that the other 2 are informed is by calling yourself and making sure that you tell them that information. So that is why I say contact all 3, and that's gonna save any issues from identity theft. So after that, you're also going to want to write a letter to Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, the 3 major credit reporting bureaus. That includes the name of the deceased, their address, their social security number, their birth date and death date, a copy of their death certificate, your name, your contact information, and your relationship to the deceased. And then you're going to want to request that credit report and send it via certified mail. This will make it so the credit reporting bureaus have the information so they don't issue credit to someone that's passed away. Also, sending it via certified mail is going to make sure you know when it gets there and it doesn't end up in the hands of someone that could do something incorrect with that information. You're also going to want to contact credit unions and banks where accounts are open for loved ones and get those accounts either changed over to be in your name or just close the accounts. Talk to your life insurance provider and see if payments can begin. And you're also going to want to evaluate if there's any changes you want to make in your life insurance coverage. And contact creditors to have your loved one have their name removed from any joint accounts. You're going to also want to close any accounts with just their name. And as a part of that, destroy those cards as well and inform creditors of any outstanding debt, how that will be repaid. Is that going to come from the estate? Is that going to just be paid out of pocket, etc.? Okay. So after that, if the deceased owned a car, you're going to want to update any names on car titles, update the deed on the house as well. And that is going to be a process through usually the county clerk's office. That's at least how it works in Colorado. I'm not sure about elsewhere. And be sure to cancel any memberships that your loved one may have had, and that includes clubs, gyms, and professional organizations. A lot of times people miss out on this last step, and it's kind of just a money suck that they don't realize they're spending. Oh, sorry. Okay, there we go. So real quick, I want to discuss the Social Security death benefit. If your loved one passes away and they have already received their Social Security benefit for the month, it must be sent back. So, and I'm not, this is a thing. I know it sounds kind of crazy, but Social Security says you have to send the money back. So you send the money back. And then afterward, there is a one-time survivor's benefit after a loss, and it's $255. You get the benefit if you're a spouse, living together or separate and receiving benefits on the deceased record. In case of a divorce, the death benefit is the same if the marriage lasted 10 years, even if there's a remarriage. So if you were married to someone for 15 years, you got divorced, they got remarried, you still get that $255. Widows and widowers can receive a monthly benefit by taking full survivor's benefits or reduced benefits, and this starts at age 60. So if your loved one passed away, but they had higher Social Security benefits than you have, you can take their Social Security benefits. Okay, so why is death such a target for scams? Because it is. And mainly it's because of the emotional vulnerability that just surrounds death and losing someone. We rarely deal with it. Also, lots of money involved, vulnerable family members, lots of people crawling out of the woodwork. There are many, many life changes, and it happens to everyone. So it is a gold mine for scams. Identity theft is one of the biggest things we see. There are over 2 million cases of identity theft per year involving the deceased. So scammers obtain information via obituaries, death certificates, and just searching online. It's easy because people that have passed away cannot check their credit report and they cannot report fraud. So if something's going on, it's very unlikely anyone will notify the credit bureaus or do anything to rectify the situation because the person's passed away. Financial institutions are not immediately made aware of a deceased member, and that's why calling the bank and the credit bureaus is so important, because identity theft is just such a huge issue surrounding when people pass away. So some ways to prevent against identity theft: shortening the obituary, not including a birthday, mother's maiden name, or any other personal identifying information. Protect the death certificate, put it in a safe place and make sure it does not get lost or in the hands of someone that would use that information nefariously. Notify Social Security and also the GMV as soon as possible. And as we talked about, notifying the credit bureaus and financial institutions. And then share information with family and friends wisely. This can be a very vulnerable time, but just make sure that if you didn't want someone saying it about you or sharing that information about you, you're not sharing it with other people, especially after someone's passed. Debt collection scams are huge after a loss of a loved one, because scammers will do their homework and figure out that you might be the one responsible for outstanding bills. Never, ever make a payment or give personal information over the phone. If there is debt that has to be taken care of, you will receive a letter in the mail. Also, if people are calling, ask for a name, ID number, and their company name. And then you call back after making sure that phone number is legitimate by Googling it and see what they have to say about debt. Get legal advice before you pay any major debts, because you might not be responsible for it. It depends on the type of debt, whether or not you're responsible after someone passes. So obituary related scams are also huge because criminals, including scammers, are reading the obituaries. There are dangers with listing personal information like we've discussed. So don't list the address of deceased or relatives, even though this information is easily searchable. I understand you can easily find an address for the most part, but putting it in the death notice or in the obituary is going to just make you more vulnerable. Have friends or neighbors stay at or pay extra attention to the home during all parts of the funeral process, and if you have to travel out of town. This just makes it so that no one's breaking into your house while you're putting your loved one to rest. Just a few general scam awareness tips. Major life events can make people more susceptible to being a victim of a scam. It's a vulnerable emotional time. So be on the lookout for red flags of common scams. This includes IRS scams, tech support scams, sweepstakes, phishing, and online dating. They might catch you off guard, even if you know all of the signs and signals of what a scam is, because they're not part of your daily routine, right? Protect your personal information and the personal information of the deceased as much as you can. And if you have questions or need to reach out to us, feel free. We can be reached again at 800-222-4444, option number 2. StopFraudColorado.gov is the Attorney General's website on fraud prevention. The Colorado Gerontological Society has some great planning resources on end of life. AARP also has a guide on funeral planning and end of life planning. And then you can get text alerts from the AARP Fraud Watch Network if you text 50757 to FWN. And that will give you alerts on the latest frauds and scams. So I see there are some questions in the chat. I'm gonna take a look at those. Thank you all so much. If you have a template will and have it notarized, you have to take it to a lawyer or a courthouse, or just several people who need to know what it says. Is the question, do you have to file it at the courthouse?
Yes, like if my husband and I do our will with a lawyer, then, you know, they would have a copy of that on file in addition to like in our safe or whatever, and one for each of our kids. But if we do the template, do we need to take it to any lawyer or courthouse for filing it before either of us were to pass?
No. Nope.
Okay.
It works in the same way. You would just give it to the people that you want to have that information. There's no filing or extra steps you need to take when it's online. Also, I don't know if any of you are interested in this, but Colorado also offers holographic wills. I do not know what the process looks like for that. I can do some research if you are interested, but those can be legal. So that's a little fun thing to know too. I will send handouts. I see lots of emails in there. Excellent. And yes, we have a variety of other presentations on frauds and scams and financial security. So I am happy to reach out with more information on that too. Are there any other questions before we wrap up today?
This is Cindy. I do have one more question for my mother-in-law for the durable financial and durable medical powers of attorneys. She wants my husband, her son, or myself, either or. She doesn't need us both to be there. It's like if my husband is just swamped with things that I can do it, but also if I happen to be swamped with things that week that he could do it. So on those templates, is there a spot for it either or instead of that both have to be present at all times?
There should be, especially if you're going to use the customizable ones. There should be. I know that people do often list ors as opposed to and, so that shouldn't be an issue.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
I was just going to say my father-in-law passed away a few years ago, and so much of the administration stuff I was handling, the paperwork and the phone calls. So he would have to get on the phone and try to fight through saying it was okay to talk to me, you know, and so she's kind of trying just to eliminate that, which we wouldn't know because he was our first parent who passed away. So yeah.
First, I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
I got another question. Okay, well, this is a little, I'm going to read the question. Can you discuss the difference between a revocable trust and an asset protection trust? often hear horror stories of bankruptcy when the state takes everything. I cannot right now. I know very little about how trusts work, especially after someone passes away. I will look into it and get back to you with more information on that. And I think you put your email in the chat. Yep, I have your email, so I will reach out with more information on that. And this will be on the AARP Colorado YouTube channel. So if you would like to review the recording, you can do that there. It will be up shortly, probably tomorrow. And I will send out those handouts shortly. Thank you all so much for attending, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you. You as well.